Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my Daily Dose with Tim. Today is Season 1, Episode 41, and we're going to continue with some of the questions that you guys have raised regarding lease options. So, as you guys know, last week it was all about lease options, and because of the amount of materials that we've had to go through, decided to kind of stretch it over to this week as well, this Friday being the very last episode of the first season. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the content so far, and I really appreciate all of your participation and your questions and your engagement. It's really, really funny that you guys are like super shy, so I don't know if it's something, the setting on Facebook or something. I'm not getting a lot of comments directly under the videos. However, like I'm getting a flood of messages via Facebook as well. So you guys are forcing me to learn how to use Facebook better, so I appreciate that. And so today is all about frequently asked questions, because I understand that with a strategy like this, there is so much going out there. We've all heard people going, oh yeah, no, that's illegal. Oh yeah, no, you cannot do that. Oh, you probably shouldn't do that. Oh, why would you do that if you don't just buy, rent, and hold anyway? And so that way, in the long term, you're still building your wealth. So first thing first, I keep saying this, we buy and sell so that we can create capital. I'm going to show you a very, very powerful math tomorrow. And that way, yeah, I sort of had a plan for tomorrow or even Wednesday at this point, because that was really an eye-opener for me personally, so that it allowed me really the time and the mental space to go, okay, yeah, this is the right strategy for me to get started on, given the goal to become financially free. However, again, when it comes to lease options, I want to remind people, yes, this is a short-term strategy. Even though it's 2 to 4 years, that is considered short-term, because a lot of people are looking to buy and hang on to real estate for a lot longer than that. Okay, so first thing first, just remember, this definitely falls under the short-term strategy area, number one. Number two, in terms of the wheel of wealth, lease options will feed all three buckets. It's going to give you the earned income upfront through IOC, initial option consideration. It's going to give you the monthly cash flow that you're looking for to quickly get you out of the rat race if that's what you want to do. And it's going to give you that final lump sum payout that you're able to anticipate as well. And so that brings me to my second FAQs usually, and one of you actually brought this up with me, is the fact that why would you do this and why would you limit your growth when you might be in a market where, let's say in the beginning when we were running the deal analysis, we say we use 5% in a lot of the good markets, especially the GTA area. We still use 5%, or even Southwest Ontario these days. And honestly though, being in Alberta during the good times, even though property values were going up like crazy, remember, we keep saying you want to use at least the last 5 years, if not 10 to 15 years of market average, because in order for everybody to be safe and to make this fair for your tenant buyers as well, that it's the long-term trajectory that we are actually looking at. And obviously, sometimes some of you guys will be asking, well, okay, even if I only use 3% or 2%, let's say in the Alberta market at this point, and for some of you in BC, you know that you're actually sliding backwards in terms of appreciation as well. So the idea though is that instead of going into offense mode, because I think a lot of us, we get into that mode where when they're challenging you, you're like, oh, I gotta win this argument, so I'm just gonna argue with you. I mean, the easiest way for me that I found, to be really honest, over the last few years of executing this strategy is all I have to do is if my tenant buyers are actually challenging me on the appreciation rate or the current purchase value versus the option to purchase price. Okay, so remember, I think let's use the two deal examples that we went through. So I believe this was the active deal that Brooke is running right now. I think maybe it's there's investors lined up already. However, feel free to still inquire with her if you're interested. And I also ate a giant piece of humble pie during the two deal analysis as well, because for both of them I actually forgot to calculate the initial option consideration and deduct that from the initial investment. So it turned out the return on investment on both deals are actually way better than we thought. Okay, so coming back here though, this is what I'm talking about. Sometimes your tenant buyers will challenge you on the fact that, well, hang on a second, we're buying this for 460 right now, and yet I gotta buy it back from you for 500. And especially depending on the market that you're in, if you're in a market where you've seen a lot of growth, and the general public mindset is that the market is still on the upward trending trajectory, then they usually don't have that kind of an argument. However, if you've been in markets where the growth has been a little soft, or some years it's been actually sliding backwards a little bit, then you might run into that objection. And usually what I would say is, I would look at the tenant buyers and I go, well, you know what? I totally understand where you're coming from. Let's just say that, can we turn the table around for just a few seconds here? If you actually bought the property for me today, I picked it out, okay? I picked it out based on my qualification. I got to work with my realtor or your realtor, and I went out and shopped for my own property, and you're buying it for me, okay? And I have an option to purchase with you 2 years from now, 3 years from now, or even 4 years from now. Would you sell it back to me at 460, or would you sell it back to me at 500? I'm going to tell you, 9 out of 10 times, if not 10 out of 10 times, their first reaction and instinct has always been, well, of course I'm going to sell it back to you at 500,000. Oh, well, why is that? Well, because real estate goes up in the long term. Well, exactly, and that's what we're talking about here. And this is why the first two questions sort of are interlinked, in the sense that this is why we encourage you to overcome that objection by using a 10 to 15 year market average, as opposed to what's been happening just in the last couple of years, because this makes it a lot easier for you to also handle that objection as well. Okay, and usually the next question is, oh, hang on a second, as an investor, really, because last week, I believe, or maybe I should know, the week before that now, oh my goodness, time flies. The week before that, I did an episode where it was more about the quick math or the deal analysis on an income property. So you could, if you remember, if you don't, make sure you go back and watch that episode as well, is that you actually factor in a lot more as your expenses on a monthly basis. That's because as a typical traditional buy and hold or income property, as a landlord, as an investor, you are responsible for a few more expenses. Why? Because as opposed to a lease option, you have tenant buyers living in your properties. These are the people, if you recall from the very first episode, I believe that was episode 36 now at this point, we mentioned that the people that you would generally help put into these rent-to-own or lease option programs, as we call them, are the ones that currently do not qualify for traditional lending, however want to and are ready to commit to becoming homeowners. So what that means is they understand that usually there are some more responsibilities attached to it. Okay, and so this is why, as an investor, this is an incredibly amazing strategy, in the sense that most of us really get to become armchair investors, because your tenant buyers usually will be taking care of all the daily miscellaneous property management duties. So you're not going to get a call from a tenant buyer saying, oh, you know what, the porch light bulb just burnt out, can you come and change that? Or the light bulbs in the bathroom just burnt out, or the toilet is clogged. So it really depends on your business decision as an investor. You decide what and how much you would like your tenant buyers to take on when there are things going sideways, as in when there are deficiencies. So we usually say that a lot of the people, and I'll give you a quick range here, okay? People, as in investors, make different business decisions depending on how they want to run their business. I have investors where they think, well, you know what, as we said, this is technically a private lending or alternative lending strategy. And so what that really means is that the people that don't qualify, your tenant buyers that do not qualify with a typical bank or traditional mortgage, they come to you. However, let's just say that, hypothetically speaking, if they could have qualified with one of the, say, the big banks, let's say the big green comfy couch bank was able to give them a mortgage, a light bulb burned out, a toilet is leaking, or the roof is leaking, even for that matter, do you think these guys are going to call up the banks, call up the big green comfy couch bank and say, hey, you know what, can you send somebody out here and fix these things for me? No, they don't. And that's why some investors, they will say that, hey, you know what, I'm putting my lender's hat on. And so what that really means is that I'm just lending them the money. I'm giving them an interim or intermediary financing solution so that we can also help them qualify later on so that their income, credit, down payment, all three criteria hit the major banks or big lenders criteria so that they can actually buy you out. However, during this entire time, I'm still behaving like a regular lender in the sense that they are fully responsible for any deficiencies that happen, big or small. Or you can take the approach that we do usually, is that we will set a certain amount. So depending on the market and the value of the property, we will usually set anywhere between from $1,000 to even $5,000 these days that the tenant buyers will be responsible for per incident, per deficiency per incident. Okay, the idea is that we want to make sure that, yeah, even if the tenant buyers have the ability to, let's say, spend $7,000 to repair the roof. Let's say, well, the hailing in Calgary has been really rough, right? And it's happened before to us in the sense that we've had to come in and really bail them out as well. The idea, though, is that yes, theoretically speaking, they should be fully responsible. And this is why one of the episodes last week, when we first introduced this strategy to you, we say that we call this homeowners in training as well, because we are training the tenant buyers to be more financially responsible and to be just overall more responsible in terms of property management duties as well. So what we typically do is that we just want to make sure that we preset that amount, and so we kind of act like a bit of an additional layer of insurance deductible, if you will. So for example, let's say in their contract it states that anything under $3,000 per deficiency per incident, they are responsible for it. Then what that means is anything leading up to that is their responsibility. Anything exceeding that amount, so for example, let's say a hot water tank goes, and typically speaking, depending on the province you're at, depending on your personal connections, usually it's an average of $4,000 to $6,000 to replace, depending on how big and what kind of model you're going for. Let's just say that it's a $4,000 new furnace that you have to replace, okay? They will come in with the first $3,000 and we pay the remainder $1,000. However, it all operates under the premise that it does not jeopardize their ability to qualify for that final mortgage, because I would rather make the overall big profit from the whole deal rather than sacrificing the entire deal being successful and the overall profit just so that we can push that repair or maintenance responsibility over to the tenant buyers. And so there are also investors, they are a bit more, I don't know what the right word really is. Like I said, this is all very much depending on depends on your, I don't know why I keep saying that, depends. It all depends on your business decision and how you assess risk, I guess, or handle risk in a way. Because I also know investors where they're saying, no, regardless of the size of the property, the age of the property, or the size of the deal, I'm just going to say anything over $1,000, I'm just going to come in and pitch in and help them out. Because at the end of the day, I'm still on title. I want to make sure that I maintain my properties to the best quality that I still can for as long as I stay on title. So there you go. You have a bit of a range there now so that you can get to pick what works best for you, okay? You don't have to agree with all of them. That's why you get to pick. And that's what's really cool about running this business as well, in the sense that at the end of the day, we don't see our tenant buyers as just a file, as just a number. We are there to really truly build win-win solutions to make sure that they are successful. And for our personal statistics, because we hear a lot of people going, oh yeah, no, rent homes are never successful and it's hard. I'm not gonna lie, some of them are hard. Most of them are actually pretty darn easy to put through, because The heavy lifting is really in the beginning where you're actually doing the screening process to make sure that the program is the right fit for them. And to be really honest though, because we keep saying that this is an alternative lending strategy, a lot of the times when we actually get a tenant buyer's lead, they end up going through our mortgage broker on our power team, and just because typically the people that we work with, they're a lot more resourceful as opposed to maybe a new mortgage broker or a mortgage broker that is not familiar or have access to a lot more lending options. Some of our leads through our marketing efforts, they actually qualify for a mortgage. It might not be the best mortgage terms and rates right off the beginning. However, they do qualify right off the bat. In that case, what we will do is we will run the lease options analysis with them, in front of them, and let them know this is your total cost of borrowing versus if you go with, let's say, a B lender, this is your cost of borrowing, and you get to pick which one actually works better for you. And we're going to talk about the pros and cons against that as well. So again, obviously, the easiest ways to look at this is that if they do end up qualifying for a mortgage, let's say even a B lender mortgage, typically speaking, they will charge a fee as well, and the rate's a little higher, and if they have and they have to come up with the cash. However, what if the market turns? What if they lose their job a year, 2 years later? Well, they're on title and they got that mortgage, which means if they start to miss their payments, they're actually going into foreclosure. However, if the same thing happens in the lease option scenario, well, guess what? They have the option to not continue, number one, as a lease option program. We've had tenant buyers that turn into regular tenants after a little bit because of personal reasons, losing their jobs. One of them lost their income, or both of them lost their incomes. One of them got sick. Somebody had to go on short-term or long-term disability. Somebody had to go on mat leave, and somebody had to relocate. All that kind of situations. However, it gives them the flexibility to say, okay, you know what, we're probably going to back out of the option to purchase. However, we did go through the process and we did pick out this property and we do love this property and it's a good fit for our family. So can we just continue to rent? So that's a really good point to bring up here as well from an FAQ perspective, is that you always want to make sure that your fair market rent at least will cover your pity payment. You want to at least make sure that your fair market rent covers your pity payment. So that way, when they let go of their option to purchase, you are still able to make a small amount of cash flow. Remember, that is priority number one, so that we get to maintain a viable business regardless, okay? So there's a few more FAQs, so maybe I'll have to continue over the next couple of days with you guys as well. I just noticed the time here. Thank you so much for joining me again. As you know, Monday to Friday every week at 4:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 5:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will be coming to you via Facebook Live, and just to share a little bit about real estate investing strategies and some business mindset and some of the journeys that we've had so far. So thank you so much again for joining me. Have a great evening, everybody. I will see you back here tomorrow. Live well.